Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us this half hour. I am Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up on the program. New court documents reveal the suspected gunmen in the Bondi Beach attack had been preparing weeks before. U.S. lawmakers threaten legal action against Attorney General Pam Bondi over release of the Epstein files. Plus, search and rescue underway for 3 people missing in floods in South Africa. Let's begin the world today. New court documents in Sydney, Australia show that the suspected gunmen in the Bondi Beach attack threw explosives at the start of the deadly incident and had been practicing for weeks before the incident. Both men had meticulously planned the attack for months, and 2 days before the shooting had visited Bondi for reconnaissance. The documents said 15 people were killed and dozens more injured when 2 gunmen opened fire on a Hanukkah celebration on December 14. Explosives, including a tennis ball bomb, failed to detonate. 24-year-old Naveed Akram had been charged with 59 offenses, including 15 counts of murder and 1 of terror. A second gunman, his father, Sajid Akram, was shot dead by police at the scene. Last week, a temporary suppression order was made on the release of the police fact sheet to protect the identities of the survivors. It was revoked on Monday, and the documents were published with some redactions. A Russian general identified as Lieutenant General Fanil Savaryov has been killed in a car bombing in Moscow. The 56-year-old was the head of the Armed Forces Operational Training Department. The Russian Investigative Committee said the explosive device was planted under a car and it detonated, killing Savaryov. It is investigating whether the bomb was planted with the involvement of the Ukrainian intelligence services. Ukraine is yet to comment on the incident. Savaryov died in hospital as a result of his injuries. The committee said it had opened an investigation into murder and illegal trafficking of explosives. Over in the UK, a major incident has been declared over what police have called a sinkhole at a canal in Shropshire, leaving boats either stricken in a gaping cavity or teetering on the edge of a drop. Pictures appear to show that the structural integrity of a stretch of waterway in Whitchurch has completely given way, raising flood fears. 2 narrow boats at the scene were said to have sunk into the hole shortly after 4 a.m. Another 2 at the edge. Water there looks to have drained away completely. One estimate puts the cavity at 15 feet, that's 4 meters deep. Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service said it was responding to a landslip and 50 firefighters had been deployed. 2 U.S. lawmakers have threatened to take legal action against the country's Attorney General Pam Bondi after her deadline to release all government files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was met only in part. The release of the documents of justice, of the Department of Justice documents, were highly anticipated, but in the end, only a portion of the available material was made public. A leading campaigner on the issue, Republican Congressman Thomas Macy, said he could try to bring contempt proceedings against the Attorney General. As a result, the DOJ insists it is complying with its legal obligations. Bondi herself has said she is part of the most transparent administration in American history. The phrase Epstein files refers to the trove of information that was amassed by the Justice Department during its 2 criminal investigations into Jeffrey Epstein. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has delivered a combative speech at Turning Point USA's America First in Phoenix, declaring an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the United States and calling for tougher immigration enforcement, faster deportations, and a broader crackdown on what he described as left-wing violence. Speaking to thousands of conservative activists, Vance said the Trump administration has made it clear that the U.S. now prioritizes hard work and merit, rejecting what he described as preferential treatment based on sex, race, or sexuality. Vance drew a sharp contrast with the previous administration, accusing former Vice President Kamala Harris of using the government to censor speech, while claiming the current administration is protecting free expression both on college campuses and online. He also said the U.S. military is now welcoming patriots instead of firing them over contentious vaccine mandates.
Today, our military is welcoming patriots instead of firing them for refusing to accept an unlawful vaccine mandate. Do you want rents to keep dropping and wages to keep rising as they have over the last few months? Then mobilize with us. Don't hand power back to the people who tanked the economy in the first place. Join the America First movement, and you will always have a place on our great team. And while President Trump and I are doing everything we can to break that machine, the left is still there, my friends, and they are still very powerful. Don't delude yourselves. It's the activist groups who want to poison your kids with hormone replacement therapy and toxins in your water supply. It's the corporate boardrooms pushing diversity quotas while whining about the fact that Donald Trump won't let them ship American jobs overseas anymore, and boo-hoo to that. More than any time I can recount, people are talking about American identity and figuring out what it is that unites us. But I want to say something here. The only thing that has truly served as an anchor of the United States of America is that we have been, and by the grace of God, we always will be, a Christian nation. Now, I want to be explicit because, of course, the fake news media will twist everything that I say. I'm not saying... Do you feel about them the same way I do? I'm not saying you have to be a Christian to be an American. I'm saying something simpler and truer. Christianity is America's creed.
We have our correspondent, Maria Bird, who's in Washington, joining us. Maria, let's begin with J.D. Vance's speech to Americans, saying that Christianity is America's creed. How do Americans feel about that?
Well, if we think about the times that we're in, the president has been very clear about his stance on Christianity, on his belief systems, and noting that the very right wing of the Republican Party and those who have fallen in line with the president are typically of more of the Christian conservative sector. And so J.D. Vance that was part of what the president brought him in to serve as his vice president, knowing that he's Catholic and kind of his religious beliefs. And so I think it's not unexpected. I think that Americans obviously, are not surprised by this. But again, this is another way that potentially we could see the American people responding in a multitude of ways. But we're right here at the Christmas season, so I think that many people probably are not expecting that type of conversation. And again, noting that he is beginning to talk about 2028. People are looking at him to potentially run for president. So he is going to be taking those very clear stances of why he was chosen to be vice president.
Yes, and then he also spoke about DEI, declaring an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the U.S., calling for tougher immigration enforcement, and then saying, that it's okay to refer to America as a white country right now. I don't know how that rubs off on African Americans in the United States, whether or not they do pay attention or even regard J.D. Vance as a political figure they should be listening to.
You know, as you mentioned, the DEI component has been something that has clearly been washed out with this new administration. They've been very clear that diversity, equity, inclusion is not a part of their administration, is not a part of their belief system. And I think Americans are prepared for that. And whether or not you're African American, whether or not you are of Hispanic background or a person of color in the U.S., I think that the question now is around racism, is really around whether or not respect and care for those that are not, that are of diverse backgrounds, and obviously people of color. But this is nothing that I think we would not have been surprised about. I think where the real challenge, though, is at the global perspective of the United States. When you kind of have that type of very clear dialogue that perceives as if diversity, people of color, the multitude of colors. We know the U.S. is full of immigrants. Every person that came to the United States is an immigrant for the most part, unless you are indigenous individual. And so, this is a country that is a melting pot. This is a country that is that has had so many different, and people oftentimes don't even use melting pot anymore because it should be a diverse background of the multitude and respect for all cultures, which it has traditionally been. So I think this is what we've seen traditionally from the right wing of the Republican Party, and many Americans of color are chalking and looking at it from that perspective.
Right, so let's go now to the release of the Epstein files. All of the files were supposed to be released on Friday, but the Attorney General only released just a portion of it. And the portion that she released had nothing to do with any Republican, especially Donald Trump, because I'm sure that lots of people were looking out for some pictures or information of President Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That didn't happen. What did the Attorney General do wrong that's rubbed Americans the wrong way?
The Attorney General, as you mentioned, when you look at what the law required, so there was a law that was put in place to ensure that the Epstein files are released by Friday. But there's a secondary component to that, and there's a couple more weeks until the next set of files have to be released. And there's hundreds of attorneys that are going through to ensure the privacy of those individuals who are being considered victims of this situation. And so there's obviously some areas that have to be protected for the privacy of individuals that potentially were victims of crimes. And so that is kind of the focal point at this time. But again, as you mentioned, what was released on Friday, Congress is calling a redacted view of the files that were required to be released. The Attorney General, Bondi, is stating that she complied with what the law required and that in a few weeks there's additional items to be released. But we know, too, that on Saturday some files and some pictures were removed from that Friday release, and so those are no longer available. And so that's where Congress is focusing in on is, one, did she comply with the law? And they don't believe that she complied with the law that was requested for as of Friday. And two, what happened to those other files and images that were released Friday that were no longer available on Saturday?
Let's talk about the trust deficit now between the Attorney General and the people of America, especially as far as this Epstein saga has gone on. I'm wondering, how much of trust the American people repose on the Attorney General. It does seem sort of that this administration is unraveling in front of Americans.
Well, as you mentioned, I think there was question around the Attorney General for quite some time for those Americans who might have not been in support of the president's administration. Those Americans who obviously have supported President Trump since the beginning do believe that she could be, doing what is in alignment with her position. Now, part of the reason, as we've discussed before, around the three powers, you have the judicial system, the executive branch, and the legislative branch, is to ensure that one area does not have more power than the other. And in this case, the president has the right to select who obviously is going to be the best fit for him. But the other branches of government have their due diligence to ensure that there's not an overstepping of power, which is where you're seeing the legislative branch looking at today. And I think Americans are wondering what's going to come out of this. I think the Epstein files are of concern, but I don't think they're of major concern to Americans. I think the concern also, too, is how much is being spent on this case as you're talking about hundreds of lawyers that are going through these files and the amount of time that the Department of Justice has had to put into this. But noting that there have been some things released that I think Americans are hopeful can be brought to justice.
Maybe that's why people just want the case over and done with. Release everything you have, in your armory about Jeffrey Epstein so that everyone has the information that they're looking for. Maria, thanks again for giving us the updates.
Thank you.
We're off on a short break on The World Today. Still ahead. More than 100 dogs attending a Christmas-themed party all the way in Beijing. Stay with us. Police in west of Johannesburg in South Africa are still looking for suspects involved in the mass shooting that claimed lives of 9 people over the weekend. According to the police, 12 unidentified men arrived in 2 vehicles and opened fire at a tavern in Beckersdale, injuring 10 people and leaving 9 of them dead. It's a second mass shooting this December. The shooting happened at about 1 a.m. local time on Sunday. The perpetrators continued to shoot randomly as people fled the scene. Police figures show that South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. 63 people were killed every day on average between April and September this year. Earlier this month, at least 11 people, including a child, were shot dead at a hostel near Pretoria. Meanwhile, search and rescue continues in Durban following a strong storm on Sunday that uprooted trees and damaged infrastructure. 3 people are reportedly missing after the car that they were traveling in was swept away by floods. Parts of Johannesburg also experienced flooding this past weekend. The South African Weather Service has issued warnings for disruptive rainfall in parts of the country with orange level 5 and yellow level 4 alerts in place. Many Nigerians in the diaspora have returned home for the holidays and to do business as well. At an event put together by the Connected Diaspora and Doing Good Work in Africa, under the auspices of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, these Nigerians created a forum where citizens with smart ideas can attract investment and create a symbiotic ecosystem for Nigerians and the diaspora to do business and prosper. It's that time of the year again when Nigerians in the diaspora return home for the festive season. Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, welcomes them.
No matter where you are in the tech world, we can partner. We can build our country. We can, as the theme says, building, breaking, and believing. You saw this is the best country in the world. It's not only President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that will make it the best, all of us.
The Lagos State Deputy Governor, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, encouraged the diasporans to plan their lives and manage their emotions regarding their progress.
The opportunities are there for people that are looking for solutions and not people looking at the pockets. But if you listen to the TV and the rest, some of those public commentators you won't get it. So, but if you talk to real people, then you will realize that this is a country on the rise, and I pray that you'll be part of that ascension.
Keynote speaker at the event, Mr. Leonard Eke, urges the diasporans to watch their lifestyle if they want to relocate back home.
Now, your lifestyle when you come, if you are living in a room in England, in America, everything works. Now, I see a lot of you come, you lodge in a 5-star hotel, living big, breakfast 50,000 naira, lunch. And if you have friends, they sit with you, use their credit card, you pay. Now, if you're a smart guy, if you are thinking of coming home, you hide.
The organizers of the event are hopeful for the wealth of talents Nigeria produces and say, even if those in the diaspora have to return because of a change in visa policy, they should know Nigeria is still their launchpad to greatness.
Always look at this, when there's a challenge, where's the opportunity? this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to start to look into organizations like Do Good Work in Africa and other organizations that are creating structured pathways for people abroad that are interested in moving back at some point to start to test the waters.
And I think it's a very good thing, and it's going to be a blessing in disguise. We might think as young people that, oh, okay, no more Western world, back to traffic, but as one of our guests said today, the lifestyle in Nigeria is much better than you think. And if you put yourself out there enough, you will find opportunities and you will find ways to have your impact made and ways for us to contribute to the economy and the society as a whole.
A little fun, a little business. These diasporans have embraced everything Nigerian, including the Lagos traffic, and look forward to endless possibilities in the motherland. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News. Well, we're looking at just a few of them, but more than 100 dogs and their owners all gathered on Saturday for a Christmas-themed party at a pet club in Beijing's Tongzhou district, highlighting China's growing pet culture and the deep emotional bonds between urban residents and their animals. The event drew small and medium-sized dogs, turning the venue into a festive playground where pets could socialize, compete in games, and then dine alongside their owners. Dogs wore Christmas accessories, as you can see there, as holiday music played across the spacious venue, creating what attendees described as a joyful bonding experience, as if they needed any more. The dog owners posed for photos with their pets, many dressed in festive Christmas outfits at the holiday-themed pet event. Event organizer Zhang noted that one of the main attractions was a human and pet fine dining experience, allowing owners and dogs to share a meal. As pet ownership rises across Chinese cities, events like this reflect changing lifestyles and a booming market, of course, for premium pet services, from fresh food to shared dining experiences, once reserved only for humans. And I have it on good authority, both sides had lots of fun. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.